Welcome to the Find Your Voice, Change Your Life podcast with psychologist Dr. Doreen Downing. Listen in as Doreen interviews people who felt they didn't have a voice or who suffered extreme speaking anxiety. You'll hear stories about how they struggled to speak up, what they did to find their authentic voice, and the confidence they now feel to speak up and make an impact. If you want to get started right away to find your voice, download Doreen's free 7-step guide to fearless speaking at doreen7steps.com. And now, here is Doreen.
Hi, this is Dr. Doreen Downing, and I'm welcoming you to my podcast, Find Your Voice, Change Your Life, where I get to interview guests who, somewhere along their journey into living the full life that they may be living now, they had a difficulty with speaking up. And today I get to introduce you to one of my dear friends, Andrea Horvath. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, Doreen. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm super excited for this conversation today.
Yes, well, we're going to open up, but first I want to give people a little bio about who you are and maybe just a tad about your history that you gave me. Andrea is a high performance mentor for corporate leaders and executives who want measurable growth that is both strategic and deeply aligned. Notice that word deeply aligned here. Earlier in her career, speaking up was not easy, and she struggled with the fear of abandonment and a belief that using her voice might create chaos. Understanding the root of that pattern changed everything. You hear that in my voice, the excitement. It changed everything, understanding what that root to that pattern was. Finding her voice became one of Andrea's greatest personal triumphs, and it continues to evolve as she leads others to rise with clarity, courage, and impact. Here we go. How was that to hear yourself described?
It was a lot, actually. It was, but it's all true,
Ah,
and that's I think what sometimes I think we go along in life and we don't take the time to reflect, you
mhm.
know, how far we've come, but everything you spoke is exactly truth. So it felt really good to hear, actually.
Yeah, because it is a journey into becoming who you are today. And I love at the end where we talk about where you just said evolving, that's one of the values that I think you carry is that we don't just get someplace and hello, we're leaders, we're accomplished. It feels like the attitude of always growing, always learning, and always opening up to what's next.
Absolutely. And I think that's important because I think we think at some point in the future, we're going to make it, we're going to have it, we're going to somehow there's going to be this holy grail that's going to open up and everything's going to make sense. And it doesn't happen. And it's actually not part of the human experience. It's just
Ah.
not.
Well, I usually go someplace else when I start, but I love this direction already. Yeah, this kind of vision that you just put out for people, for us to think, oh, we're always striving and wanting to be someplace other than where we are right now. Of course, that's what growth is about, but I'd love to just go in that direction first before we go into what happened.
Absolutely. I love that you pulled on this thread. So, I know when I was growing up, it was this belief that at some point, if you follow all these steps, you'll make it, right? We have this construct that we've created in our society, and that's really based on ego. Our ego wants safety, it wants to know that some point in the future, it's all going to be worth it, all the sacrifice, all the whatever we do. And the truth is actually, our soul is here for expansion. That's what our soul wants. Our soul wants experiences. It wants expansion. It wants us to really grow into our full potential. So how could there ever be an end goal? How could there ever be a point where
Uh-huh.
it's actually complete? As long as you're living and breathing, you are expanding and your soul actually wants that. And that just kind of can liberate you from the struggle or the feeling that something is out there that somewhere along the way is going to make you feel whole and complete. Because that's just an
Oh,
illusion.
oh. Uh, and so the knowing, and this is partly what even right now, I think in the listeners are hearing this idea, this concept, this belief that you have that there's something much deeper. And that's one of the words I used in the bio is deep, more deeply aligned. And
Mm.
now what you're saying, guess who you're aligned with? Your soul. And it is it. I don't know if it's really an it, but the soul is dynamic and I love the word that you're using now, the expansion, and every moment is an opportunity. What a different way to live.
It was completely different because it's the ego wants control and it wants safety. And your soul wants expansion. And why love the word expansion? Because growth to me can sometimes sound like you're not there yet. Do you know what they
Yes.
mean? Like, yeah,
Yes.
like there's somewhere I need to grow into. Where expansion is this idea that you're never going to be there, right?
Well,
It's
you
completely
already
opposite.
are.
Yeah, exactly.
If you have something and it expands, you're expanding something that is already there, I think, is
Correct.
what
Yeah.
you're saying. Yeah, I like
So
that
it's completely
distinction.
contrary. It's completely contrary to how we've all been raised. It's completely opposite.
Right. We don't go to school to learn about our innate soul that's alive and bright and growing. You're right.
Yeah. We
Uh,
go to school to get the certificate, the degree, the whatever it is, to get to the next point, to get to the next point, to get to the next point.
that's what I did.
Yeah, that we all
That's
did,
what you
right?
did too. I know some of your
Absolutely.
story. So, speaking about your story, let's wind back anyway, because you probably in somehow knew this, but you didn't know it early on because we as soulful women who have intuition and sensitivity find ourselves in environments that don't nurture that in us early on. So we need people like you later on in our lives to wake us up to that fact that it's always been there. It just was not witnessed, seen, or celebrated early on. So going back in your life early on, what are some stories that pop out that say, oh, this is what I learned first in the environment that I should be this, I should do that, I can't do this, some of the ways in which you were cramped up, I guess.
Oh, I was very cramped up. So I was born into a very, very conservative family. There's a certain set of rules, which very strict rules of how you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to do in your life. It was just, this is the way. And I think what was really problematic with that, and it's problematic in a lot of ways, it's not that if you don't follow the rules, if you don't do the way you're supposed to do it, there's something fundamentally wrong with you. And that was drilled into me at a very young age. Like if you don't follow the narrative of the family, there's something like fundamentally wrong with you. So you can imagine from a very young age, like how that created, like I stayed within all the lines because I was scared, because if it meant if I actually went out of the lines, I was fundamentally flawed. So that kept me for many, many years staying in the line. I went to university. I got my degree in economics. I got my professional accounting designation, my CPA. I mean, you talk about following all the rules. I got married. I had kids. I did everything right because I believed if I didn't, that things would ultimately, like everything would fall apart.
And did you ever
Until,
have an experience before we go forward on that until
yeah.
I want to stay back just a little bit longer because it sounds like you definitely had your marching orders. However, we also can learn that if we cross a boundary, that's when the consequence happens. So I'm thinking there must have been something that, you learned, ooh, I mean, I like fear. I better not, or else. And the or else, you must have experienced something about the or else that was alarming, painful, anything about that.
Oh, absolutely. First of all, there's something wrong with me. And the narrative of my family is if you don't follow the rules, you're crazy.
Crazy.
Crazy, very dangerous. But the other part was abandonment.
Oh,
If I don't follow the rules, nobody's going to be there for me because they're going to say, well, you're crazy. We don't want to be around you and you're gone.
and did anything
So
like that happen though?
eventually, yes.
Uh-huh. Well,
So,
in relating to your story, I'm thinking about, yeah, my mother got sick and went into the hospital when I was 3 or 4 years old. So she left. So I have that
mm,
abandonment, and we call it a wound, right? So I better, and then grandma would say, you better be, you better be quiet or your mom's going to get sick again. So I was looking for kind of like what the learning that came out of being told you were crazy or somebody left you or that kind of thing.
well, I mean, I basically learned to toe the line,
Hmm.
and so that was it. But I always had this thought, and I remember having thoughts growing up that I didn't understand life. I'm like, so many parts of it I didn't understand. Like I couldn't understand how my mom got up every day and went to work and she hated it. She was tired when she got home. And I remember thinking to myself, this isn't
Um,
normal. Why do we do this in this world? So there were many times throughout all
yes,
of this where I would question things. But because if I voiced these,
yeah.
if I said something, it's like, well, that's just the way it is. And I've been told, for a lot of my probably first 30 years of my life, and even beyond then, like this is just the way it is. And so, I certainly learned to stifle my voice because if I said anything that went contrary, I was shut down really, really quickly.
Yes. Okay.
So
That's,
I kept it all in.
yeah, I was looking for what the experience was when you did cross the line, right? And it
Yeah, shut
sounds
down
like,
essentially. Yeah.
yeah, and then this kind of curiosity that you had, which is natural, and then already beginning to question. I think that's remembering that you were questioning even at a young age why your mom would go off to something that burned her out, actually, that wasn't joyful, that wasn't pleasurable, that wasn't good for her. And seeing that as a young girl,
I know
wow.
it blows my mind now. And of course, the work I do now is just, they say that a lot of you, the work you came here to do on the planet, you knew when you were a kid,
Yes.
right? You
Yes.
know, and I knew back then there was something wrong. There was something wrong with that system and that sacrifice that she did. So, but I had a number of those. That was one of the most vivid ones. But I just remember so many times, even getting older, like I don't get this. I don't get this life.
Uh,
Why do we do all these things? It was very confusing to me at times. And so
mhm.
I was painfully shy. I was painfully shy because I had all these thoughts in me,
Uh,
questions, but of course, as we've discussed, if I articulated them, it didn't go well. And so I stuffed all of them down for, decades, literally.
Ooh, that I just have a visceral experience of that right now, listening to you stuffing it down in my gut.
Yeah.
And what that does, because it's an invisible process, but it's actually energetically really true that the stuffing of energy into your body um, is not only painful, but it can create disease.
Oh, yes. Oh, it does create disease. It really truly does. So yeah, it was it was an interesting time. It was tough, but of course life kept moving along and I'd love to share like what happened if that's okay with you, like because there was a moment when everything changed.
Yes, let's go there.
So, as life often does, and I'm sure you can relate to this, the more you stuff things down, the longer you do that,
Mhm.
the worse your life gets.
Yes.
Things eventually fall apart. And that's what happened. My daughter was born in 2004. And within 2 months, I know realized she wasn't well.
Mm.
And I went on a almost 2-year journey to figure out what was wrong with her. And what I had to do to figure out what was wrong with her is throw out all the stories, throw out what anybody thought of me because my daughter's health depended on it.
Oh,
So I had to like completely throw away what anybody thought of me, family included,
uh-huh.
and figure out what was wrong with her because she had symptoms, but a lot of people told me I was just a paranoid first time mom. I got all the stories. There's nothing really wrong with her. I was told that I could test her for certain things when she was 3 years old. I was given all the stories, and all I had was my intuition, which I had never ever tapped into before. Like I'd never really truly listened to it, I should say. I tapped into it, but this is the first time in my life where I went, if I
Listen.
don't listen to myself, my daughter's health is at risk.
Mm.
And so something came in, the the perfect storm where life said, hey, you know what? If you don't actually start using your voice to advocate for her, right?
Yeah.
She's not, it's not going to go down well.
Yeah.
So life created the perfect storm to break me out of my shell.
Yeah. Well, I think in terms of the listeners today, that life circumstances can have that gift, that purpose. And if we can say, what's in it here that I can learn from, or I know we talked about the word grow, but if things in me are wanting to change, how can I allow that to happen? What an interesting moment, though, for it being for someone else, that's how it happened first
Right.
for you.
And I've thought about this too. So I love that you brought that up. Like, why was it her? And I think it was a health issue.
Uh-huh.
So it was pretty significant when you talk about speaking up. This is not a minor thing. Um, I saw her being autistic, like she was showing all the classic symptoms of autism. So I saw this as her path. And she was just really unhappy. And so, absolutely, I think it was an easier way to segue for me to speak up for her
Yes.
than to speak up for myself.
Uh-huh.
I think that was a bridge, is what I believe it was a bridge.
Great, great image of bridging into the more that's possible for you.
Yeah.
And then how, on the other side of the bridge, what happened for you?
Well, after, and I just want to add before I move on that I actually got to the solution. Following my intuition and speaking up actually worked. Can
Uh-huh.
imagine that, right?
Uh-huh.
But it was beautiful because it actually worked. So once I got through that, I mean, I was a different person because I learned that like I really had my eyes opened. Before that, I really believed that everyone around me in the world had it all figured out. And that I was the one who was naive to not understand about life. And then I went, hey, wait a minute. Actually, I've been really downplaying myself. I actually know a lot more and I understand things at a deeper level because you know me, I do run quite deep. And so it just changed my whole life. Like literally, like those I always say there's Andrea before that and there was Andrea after that. Before that was following the rules, like stuffing my voice down. And after that, it was like, no, that's not my path. And so I just started to speak up more and more and more. And I mean, that was my daughter's now 21.
Mhm.
So that was 21 years ago that journey started. So it's been a constant evolution of me just learning more and more about my voice and why I've suppressed it for so long and learning how to use it, what I want to say, dealing with rejection, dealing with abandonment, dealing with all of those things and evolving
Mhm.
into a completely different career. Obviously, I left being a CPA to do what I am now, but it's been a constant evolution of finding my voice and allowing it to come out. It's been a really huge part of my journey.
Mm. Well, I want to go further into what you just brought up in terms of the evolution and that you don't just find your voice, but there are some moments like you've already pointed to where you wake up your voice and you start to feel the power of it. And in your case, it was for your daughter, but then, like you say, it's a bridge. But I'm going to take a quick break and we'll be right back and I'll get to go further, deeper with your story.
If you want to get started right away to find your voice, download Doreen's free 7-Step Guide to Fearless Speaking at doreen7steps.com.
Hi, we're back. This is Dr. Doreen Downing, and I'm with Andrea Horvath today talking about, the soul expanding always, always, always from within, and what that means when we start out in life where we are told to be a certain way, and if we don't, we get called crazy, which is what partly what Andrea's story is about. So if you go back, you'll get to hear some of what the circumstances in her early life that stunted her voice. And then also we started to talk about, well, when did she tap into it? And it was about advocating for her daughter. And now we're looking at, so finding her voice because it worked for her daughter in terms of speaking up opened up even more because Andrea, I know you are somebody who trusts yourself and who feels like voice is always becoming the more, because as we expand, our voice expands, right? So
Yep.
anything you want to pick it up from where we left off around you and your opening and your evolving and your expanding.
I love what you mentioned about trust because in my experience, you know, to be able to speak in front of people in any kind of group, in any way, and to speak your truth and to feel comfortable in your skin, for me, it's all been about self-trust. It's all about self-trust and reclaiming my power and, being okay with what I'm saying, being okay with somebody rejecting me, being okay with somebody not liking me, being okay with making a mistake in what I'm saying or fumbling upon my words. Because isn't that what we often worry about when we speak? We're going to fumble our words. Who cares? Literally,
Mm-hmm.
who cares? We are not robots. We are not AI regenerating words. We're human beings. And I built this trust within myself that if I can, speak my truth and be okay with somebody rejecting me, like there's nothing really stopping me. But we're so conditioned to fit in. And this is part of what, I mean, I grew up very much needing to fit in with my family, but let's face it, that goes beyond family. That goes into cultures, into countries, into societies.
Yeah.
The drive to fit in now is stronger than ever before. Like
Why?
I see this now in the last
Why
5 or 6 years. It's all about fitting in.
why would you say
Well,
that? I mean, that's
if
a
you look
good.
back 20 or 30 years ago, you could have differences of opinions and you wouldn't get canceled.
Uh-huh.
We
Uh-huh.
live in a cancel culture now where you say the wrong thing and somebody could have liked 99 out of your last podcast episodes and you say one thing and they're like, I'm done with you.
Mm.
So they're really with that cancel culture, it does create this new place of if I say the wrong thing, am I going to, lose credibility? Am I going to lose this or am I going to lose that opportunities or whatever it might look like? I mean, if I'm in Canada, but I know you're in the US, but if you follow the wrong political party, support the wrong political party, people can cancel you in a heartbeat. And there's so much misinterpretation.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much where, you go onto social media and clips, podcast episodes or interviews get clipped just to make it sound a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all aware of this. And I believe that's created this space of people not speaking their truth even more than ever. Because we used to be able to have political conversations or conversations about certain things and not get deeply offended like we do now.
Uh-huh. Great. I'm glad I understand a little bit more what you mean. And I do, now that you've explained it, really have that. I can see it, I can feel it. And what you just said before that, though, is trusting that, and it's not about not caring what people say about you, but there is something about it's more important to be true, I think. It's about the value of valuing yourself, I think.
100%. And something I actually came up with, this was about 6 months ago, because I used to say, I don't care what people think of what I say.
Yeah.
And it sounds awful, but what I realized is there was actually a little bit of a subtext beyond that. I don't care if people don't like what I say, but I care about people deeply. And
Beautiful.
I had to have that reframe in myself, because it's not that I don't care about people. I'm
Yes.
not here, because I'm not here to be flippant. I'm not here to create chaos for chaos sakes. I'm not here for any of that. But if you don't like what I'm saying, I'm okay with that. But that doesn't mean I don't care for you or care about you or care about humanity. And I think that's important to distinguish that.
Oh,
For
I'm
me, it
so
was.
glad
Maybe
you
somebody listening
said
can
that.
feel that.
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. I so agree, because the I don't care what people think is only like, it doesn't say who you truly are, which you just said, but I do care about deeply about people. But I trust that myself telling the truth is what's has more value than what other people might say or think. And I think that you just explained it really, really well for folks about that that phrase. Well, don't care about. I mean, you don't need to care about what other people think, and that's not the full guidance I think that you bring to your work with folks.
Well, thank you. And thank you for saying that. And it's exactly it, because we also have been built in a culture where we're taught to really care what people think of us. Now, but isn't that interesting? And isn't that why we so often don't express ourselves? Because we're told to care so deeply what people think of us.
Mm-hmm.
But it actually stifles our own growth, our own expansion, and our own voice.
Yes.
And so for me, it's not about, like I said, not caring, but it's caring more about me expressing myself. And there is an integrity that goes in there. That's actually my most important value.
Uh-huh.
So there's a lot of layers to that. This is not flippant, right? Which we often see that very flippant. I don't care what people think of me. It's like, it's not it. That's not it. That's a different archetype. That's a different,
Yeah.
level of consciousness altogether. This is not what this is about. This is important. And I truly believe that if we're all getting to that point now where, and I'm seeing this shift, especially this year. I think 2026 is going to be huge, where we've all witnessed the last number of years of being counseled or saying things that ruffle feathers. And I think we're tired of it. I think the collective is tired of not being able to just speak, not
Mm-hmm.
be canceled, not be called out, not be anything. But we have to build that inner resilience, that inner trust within ourselves, because that's what speaking is about. It's about actually being, like I said, saying what you want to say, speaking your truth, or what your vocation is, your expertise, like
Yeah.
freaking owning it.
Yes.
Like just owning
Yes.
it and just going, you know what? I am so cool if you disagree with me. And actually bring it on. Let's have a discussion. Let's actually have a conscious and evolved discussion. It's so okay. And I say this on my podcast sometimes, like, don't take on what I'm saying. If you don't like it, it doesn't resonate with you, like
Uh-huh.
leave it. It's not for you.
Yeah.
And we need to be able to do that. We need to be able to speak and say, like, if you don't like this, that's cool. I'm good. We can still be friends. We can still be whatever, colleagues.
Uh-huh.
We don't have to agree on everything, but we need to be okay with that and just own what we're saying and not worry so much. Because, God, it's exhausting. It is
Yeah.
so exhausting worrying what people think of you.
Well, the other thing I just realized the way you said that was the speaking comes from what you believe, but you aren't speaking in a way. I mean, you're giving people permission to accept it or not. You aren't trying to make people believe a certain way, or you're just saying, this is what's possible. This is what's true for me. And I like the staying lined up, because that's one of the things we talked about, or that I read in the beginning, the aligning with yourself. So, and it's not about trying to force something on people. It just is. The isness feels like so fresh with you. So, what is alignment then?
Well, alignment really it's alignment with your soul. Like I have my podcast is called The Soulful Shift. And the reason why I called it The Soulful Shift is because we are aligning away from ego to soul. So much of what we do, like the worrying about fitting in, the keeping ourselves small, stuffing our voice down, that's all ego, right? And so aligning with our soul means ultimately listening to yourself is your greatest authority. And we've been taught to outsource our authority and look to others. So when I say, like, don't take on what I'm saying, I don't ever want to override anybody else's sovereign thinking and sovereign being. That is the last thing I want. I actually want people to think critically. I want them to say, does this feel right and true for me? Because that's where we're moving into now. We need to start connecting with ourselves and our inner own guidance rather than looking for the answers outside, because the answers are not out there. And so that's what aligning with your soul is, actually being still enough, which is one of the hardest things for people to do, is being still enough to ask yourself, does this work for me? And not just take everything in at blind faith. And I believe this is happening at a collective level. Because if you look at AI too, now this conversation go here, right? But we don't know what's true and what's like real and what's not anymore. Like there's such great AI. And so what that's asking of all of us is ask yourself. Don't just believe what you see because somebody says it's true. You have to connect with yourself. And does this make sense to me? That's where we're at in our evolution. But that's what alignment really is. It's aligning with who you really are instead of who the world's told you to be, or you should be, or what you should do. And it's a big shift. When you think going from ego to soul, like I said at the very beginning, that is a diabolically seismic shift to be walking through. But that's what we're all walking through right now.
Uh-huh. Ooh, big breath. This is just like, wow. I love the idea, and the guidance that you're giving is to move out of the patterns, we could call them, and
Yep.
go into the soul. And then what you said is listen. No, this is what you said. You said about being still enough. You have to learn. That seems to be what the teaching would have to start with, is how do you be still so that you can listen and be able to discern what is a soul and what is trained pattern, ego, any of that. So that's the work I think you must be doing with women, right?
Well,
Helping
and I do
them.
it with women and men. But yes, absolutely, because we've been taught in a society that if you don't keep going, everything's going to fall apart, isn't it? People cannot get off the hamster wheel because there's a fear that once you step off that hamster wheel, things are just going to go by the wayside and everything's going to be lost, because there's a scarcity program that's running, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's deep programming around scarcity. But it's exactly what you said. It's looking past the patterns, the conditioning, the program, and it's just aligned so much with what you do. When we start to see, we've been doing all these things just from a wound that we had 40 years ago, and it's like
Yes.
and
Yes.
not to get like into blaming and shaming,
Right.
but just bringing light to it and going, okay, we don't have to do that anymore. Like, I'm not a kid anymore that's going to get rejected from the nest. You know what I mean? Like, that's not going to happen. I'm not a kid anymore. And we keep running on these programs and this conditioning and all the shoulds and coulds.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not working as a society. It's not working for most people, but it is about slowing down long enough to hear your voice
Mm-hmm.
and listening to it and following through with it.
Yeah.
And that takes practice. It doesn't happen overnight. And there's a process. There's a whole deconditioning that has to happen. I'm sure you do that with your clients. You've got to like reprogram yourself,
Uh-huh.
really,
Yeah.
right? Out of that whole programming and ego and conditioning.
Well, yes, and that's partly why I think that you and I have done the journey of going through and breaking down our conditioning, and then learning how to listen and to really celebrate something deeper that's inside of us, and then value it, trust it, and then give voice to it. Have the deepest part of
Exactly.
ourselves have a voice. And so a word I'm just thinking about you right now, because we're coming to an end, is freedom. You represent freedom to me, of how to be free. So tell us a little bit more about your work, because before we get off, I want to make sure people know how to find you, anything specifically about how you work that they might want to find you and get benefit of being in your presence.
Well, thank you so much, Doreen. So, I mean, my website is andreahorvath.com. There's links and information there, but I work with corporate leaders who have awakened, who are recognizing that what they're doing is not working anymore. I mean, there's a whole conversation about when you shift into the soul, and we all are, the old rules don't work anymore. The way we used to do things doesn't work anymore. So, high achievers who want to get to that next level, who know they're meant to lead and are not getting there, whether it's a promotion, it's a pay raise, or just to step more into their truth. So I work with individuals as well as teams. I do corporate events, speaking events to companies that really want to embody this, because this is how we're going to be creating success moving forward. We can see the old success rules don't work anymore, right? That just repeat, rinse and repeat the narrative and going along doesn't work. And we're seeing so many systems crumble right now, and it's because they're wanting to be rebuilt. Well, they're being rebuilt, right? And so who are those leaders who are wanting to rebuild these systems and to step into their next level of leadership? So I have a um, it's a leadership series, which is a pre-recorded, called The Unshakeable Leader, which I just started this year, which I love. It's all about reclaiming your power, stepping into your truth. And I share all kinds of things about energy and abundance and money and reclaiming your power. And then I also do one-on-one with individuals and with teams. So, and I'm on LinkedIn. I've got my podcast. So there's lots of different places to find me.
Oh, find you, enjoy you, learn from you, and be guided by you, all the ways in which you represent the new person, the new leader, the new what's possible. I just, that's one of what I'm so attracted to you, your work, and the depth of it. That to me feels like when you ring a bell or a chime and it vibrates, it goes ding.
I love that.
And that to me feels like a voice that's connected to depth and soul has that quality. And that's why I'm glad I got to be with you today and highlight
You.
you, feature you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doreen.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us today for this episode of Find Your Voice, Change Your Life. Each person Doreen interviews shares what has helped them find their voice. You can learn from these guests and find your voice so you can be confident to speak up and speak out. And remember to download Doreen's free 7-step guide to fearless speaking at doreen7steps.com. We hope you enjoyed the show and will return next time. Until then, goodbye for now.